Are British prime ministers waging a secret war against the civil service? It sounds like a conspiracy theory, right? But what if I told you that the very people tasked with implementing government policies are often seen as the biggest obstacle to change? We're diving deep into the power struggles that shape the UK's political landscape, revealing the hidden battles fought behind closed doors in Whitehall. Get ready for a showdown of epic proportions, where political ambition clashes with bureaucratic inertia. Is the civil service a vital pillar of stability or a roadblock to progress? The answer might surprise you, and the stakes are higher than you think. Prepare to question everything you thought you knew about how Britain is run. Keir Starmer, the current Labour leader, is walking into a minefield. He's promising radical reforms to a state he says has become bigger but weaker. Think of it as a bloated bureaucracy, choked by red tape and endless layers of checkers and blockers. Starmer wants to rewire Britain's institutions, starting with planning rules to spur more building and then tackling the welfare system. His chief of staff, Morgan McSweeney, is even pushing to paint Labour as insurgents. Insurgents, that's a pretty strong word, suggesting a complete overhaul of the existing system. But is Starmer biting off more than he can chew? The civil service unions are already pushing back, arguing that they're stretched thin and under-resourced. One union even accused Starmer of taking a Trumpian turn. Ouch, this is a high-stakes gamble. Can Starmer deliver on his promises, or will he become another prime minister defeated by the Whitehall machine? Let's rewind to the Iron Lady, Margaret Thatcher. She wasn't exactly known for her patience with bureaucracy. Thatcher came into power determined to dismantle Britain's post-war consensus, which favored state intervention and strong trade unions. Her solution? Privatization. Key arms of the state, like nationalized utilities, transport, and telecommunications, were sold off to private hands. And she didn't stop there. Thatcher slashed public sector jobs, scrapping an average of 16,000 posts a year in her first 3 years. The number of civil servants plummeted from 732,000 to 630,000 between 1979 and 1983. But it wasn't just about cutting numbers. Thatcher's government also kept a close eye on civil servants deemed subversives. MI5, the spy agency, monitored 1,420 civil servants and kept them away from computers and revenue collection roles due to communist influence fears. Talk about a purge. Thatcher's approach was brutal but effective. She reshaped the British state, but at what cost? Did she go too far, or was it a necessary shock to the system? Even Tony Blair, riding high on a landslide victory, felt the sting of Whitehall resistance. He famously spoke of the scars on my back from trying to reform and modernize the public sector. Think about that for a second. A prime minister with a massive majority, still struggling to get things done. Blair's frustration highlights a key challenge. It's one thing to have a vision, but it's another thing entirely to implement it within the complex and often resistant machinery of the civil service. What was Blair trying to achieve? He wanted a more efficient and responsive public sector, but he ran into the same roadblocks that have plagued prime ministers for decades. The sheer size and complexity of the civil service make it difficult to steer, and any attempt at reform is met with resistance from those who benefit from the status quo. Blair's experience shows that even the most popular and powerful leaders can be humbled by the Whitehall machine. Here's a little secret from inside Whitehall. Officials often buy time by saying a project is due in spring. But spring can mean astronomical spring, which ends on June 21st, not meteorological spring, which ends on May 31st. So, expect a glut of announcements around June if they aren't delayed again. This is a critical moment for Starmer. One business lobbyist said, in order to have its impact at the end of the parliamentary term, this is when the rubber has to hit the road. A union official was more blunt. People don't know what the government is trying to achieve. They don't have a story to tell. The pressure is on. Starmer needs to deliver concrete results and communicate a clear vision to the public. Otherwise, he risks losing momentum and becoming just another prime minister who promised change but failed to deliver. Can he beat the June deadline and silence his critics? Or will he become another victim of Whitehall's delaying tactics? Let's not forget the media moguls who often play a pivotal role in shaping public opinion. Rupert Murdoch, for example, described Britain's vote to leave the European Union as like a prison break. He even warned Boris Johnson that he would face a bloody revolt if he backtracked on the referendum result. Murdoch's newspapers, like the Sun and Sunday Times, backed Brexit, while the Times urged its readers to stay in the Union. This shows the power of the media to influence political discourse and shape the narrative around key issues. Murdoch's views, whether you agree with them or not, carry weight and can impact the way the public perceives the government and its policies. So, As we analyze the relationship between prime ministers and the civil service, it's important to remember the role of the media in shaping public opinion and influencing the political landscape. Are media moguls like Murdoch a force for good or a dangerous influence on democracy? That's a question worth pondering. So what's really going on here? We've got prime ministers pushing for change, a civil service seemingly resistant to it, and media moguls stirring the pot. It's a clash of agendas, a battle for control, and a struggle to define the future of Britain. On one side, you have politicians who want to leave their mark, to implement their vision, and to be remembered as transformative leaders. On the other side, you have civil servants who are often more concerned with maintaining stability, preserving the status quo, and protecting their own positions. And then you have the media, which thrives on conflict and controversy, and often amplifies the tensions between these two groups. This is a recipe for gridlock, for frustration, and for a government that struggles to deliver on its promises. But it's also a reminder that power is never absolute, that change is never easy, and that the forces of resistance are always lurking beneath the surface. Is this inherent conflict a strength or a weakness of the British system? That's the million-dollar question. Ultimately, the relationship between British prime ministers and the civil service is a complex and often fraught one. It's a story of ambition versus inertia, of vision versus bureaucracy, and of the constant struggle to balance the need for change with the need for stability. As we look to the future, it's clear that this dynamic will continue to shape the UK's political landscape. Whether it's Starmer trying to rewire Britain's institutions or a future prime minister pushing for even more radical reforms, the civil service will always be a force to be reckoned with. The key is to find a way to harness the expertise and experience of the civil service, while also ensuring that it is responsive to the needs of the public and accountable to elected officials. This requires strong leadership, clear communication, and a willingness to compromise. But above all, it requires a recognition that the civil service is not the enemy, but rather a vital partner in the project of governing Britain. Do you think Starmer can succeed where others have failed? What reforms do you think are most needed in the civil service? Share your thoughts in the comments below. And don't forget to subscribe for more in-depth analysis of the forces shaping our world. Thanks for watching.